Afghanistan has not yet fully exploited the power of its education system to promote sustainable development, despite facing difficult challenges relating to climate change and environmental degradation. While the government, along with international partners, has put in place measures to protect education from natural disasters, it has not yet used education as a tool to promote disaster resilience and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Furthermore, and partly because decades of conflict and instability have taken policy focus away from environmental issues, Afghanistan currently lags behind most other countries in meeting its global sustainable development commitments. This video will show how the Education for Sustainable Development agenda offers Afghanistan the opportunity to make rapid progress in meeting its sustainable development targets while improving educational access and outcomes. Afghanistan is one of the world's most vulnerable countries to the impacts of climate change. Over the past century, in particular the last 60 years, it has experienced warming at a much higher rate than the global mean, which has increased the frequency and intensity of droughts and other extreme weather events. Afghanistan is also located in a zone of high seismic activity, so is highly susceptible to earthquakes and tremors. However, Afghanistan's vulnerability to natural disasters is not only due to its geography. Human systems failures have also played a role. For example, earthquakes have destroyed buildings and cost lives because many buildings in Afghanistan are poorly built and not designed to withstand tremors. Forest degradation, caused by the overcutting of trees for fuel and construction, as well as to fund insurgent activities, has meant there are too few trees to absorb water during heavy rainfall, leading to floods and landslides. In urban areas, inadequate waste disposal systems have led to flooding as well as water contamination. Frequent droughts have led to water scarcity and affected livelihoods in a country where 80% of the population depend on agriculture and animal husbandry for their income and food. Water scarcity has also contributed to a rise in insurgency, since many farmers have turned to growing opium poppies, a less water-intensive crop, to earn enough money to feed themselves and their families. Conflicts, natural disasters, loss of livelihoods, and shortages of vital resources have forced many families from their homes. Most internally displaced people end up in Afghanistan's urban centers, which lack the resources and capacity to meet the needs of their growing populations, causing further tensions. Children are especially affected by environmental and climate change issues, which threaten their present and future well-being, including their access to education. For example, earthquakes and other natural disasters often damage school buildings, as well as the infrastructure required to get to school. Parents who lose their source of income due to drought or natural disasters often keep their children from school to work and contribute to the family income. Children who become ill, are injured, or suffer trauma due to natural disasters often miss school, which can lead to their dropping out of education. These issues tend to affect girls more than boys due to gender norms and the gendered division of labor within households. For example, when families fall into poverty, they tend to prioritize boys' education over girls, meaning that girls are often the first to be withdrawn from school. Girls are usually responsible for collecting water and other natural resources needed in the home, and droughts increase the time and energy required to do this, which can lead to girls being absent from or dropping out of school. Growth in insurgency as a result of environmental and climate change issues can have a particularly harmful effect on girls' education and currently threatens progress made to date in getting girls into school. Yet, education can be a powerful tool for promoting environmental sustainability and building resilience to natural disasters. Studies show that people with secondary or higher education are more environmentally aware and more likely to take action to protect the environment than those with less education. Research also shows that more educated households cope better during and recover more quickly from natural disasters and are less likely to withdraw their children from school as a coping mechanism. This is because education increases individuals' ability to access and process information, as well as to plan for and respond to risks. The positive impacts of education on disaster resilience can be seen when comparing death rates from natural disasters in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. All three countries are located in the Caribbean and have similar geographical features, yet fewer people die as a result of natural disasters in Cuba. While Cuba had higher death rates akin to the other two countries in the 1960s, in the 1970s its government invested heavily in education and integrated lessons on disaster preparedness, prevention and recovery into the school curriculum at all levels. In addition, Cuban students are encouraged to work with their local communities to identify environmental risks and collaboratively find solutions. This has helped to reduce the death rate during natural disasters in Cuba. The positive impacts of education on disaster resilience and climate change adaptation are greatest when girls are retained in school. Academic studies have found several reasons for this. First, women with secondary or higher education tend to gain higher returns to education than men at the same level, and access to financial resources increases an individual's capacity for coping during natural disasters. Moreover, when women are in charge of financial resources, they are more likely than men to use them for their family's health and well-being. Mainstreaming education for sustainable development, or ESD, into education systems involves 4 key actions. First, integrating ESD into national policy strategies and programs to create an enabling environment for bringing about systemic change. Second, integrating ESD into school curricula and national quality standards to ensure that learners develop the knowledge, attitudes, and competencies to respond to sustainability challenges. Third, integrating ESD into teacher education to build the capacities of teachers and trainers to use interactive and learner-centered approaches that develop students' core sustainability competencies. And finally, transforming learning and training environments to bring them in line with ESD aims. However, before Afghanistan can fully exploit the potential of ESD, it needs to address several key challenges. For example, ESD relies on teachers using active teaching methods to develop students' core sustainability competencies. Yet, Afghanistan is currently experiencing a teacher crisis with too few badly paid and therefore unmotivated teachers. This issue needs to be resolved before teachers will be motivated to invest the time and energy in upgrading their pedagogical approaches in line with the ESD agenda. On the other hand, the ESD agenda could play a part in improving access to, retention in, and support for education. For example, a shift to ESD provides a strong rationale for girls' education, as better education will enhance girls' ability to sustainably supply and efficiently manage the natural resources needed in the home. The emphasis ESD places on practical and interactive learning can also reduce the risk of children dropping out of school by making education more relevant and engaging. Integrating sustainable development principles such as peace and nonviolence into school curricula could lead to the abolition of harmful practices such as corporal punishment, which is known to lead to dropout among male Afghan students. Finally, the skills and competencies that teachers and students would develop through a shift to ESD could improve communities' ability to negotiate with the Taliban to protect children's, especially girls', right to education and a safe learning environment. A shift to ESD could also improve educational quality, even though many schools in Afghanistan lack buildings and facilities. After all, in many countries across the world, ESD utilizes outdoor education to connect students to their physical environment and provide children with a natural laboratory to conduct practical experiments and learn by doing. Finally, ESD can make an important contribution to environmental sustainability and disaster resilience. For example, the greening of technical and vocational education programs to expose learners to sustainable concepts, train them in disaster-resilient technologies, and teach sound environmental practices could address human systems failures and thus reduce the impacts of natural disasters. Likewise, ESD's emphasis on engaging local communities in curriculum development, as well as in student projects and activities, could create avenues for learning about and documenting traditional knowledge on how to use natural resources in a sustainable way. In summary, Urgent action is required to promote environmental sustainability and build resilience to natural disasters and climate-related events in Afghanistan. However, the government of Afghanistan and international partners will need to work together to overcome the many challenges to successfully implementing and thereby transforming Afghan society through ESD.